Facebook Live right now. My name is Michael Ian Cedar from EngagedLeadership.com. And people are indeed starting to come in the room. Ryan, Sherry, Mel, a bunch of whole party. I guess we would call it a leadership party in the room right now, wouldn't we? All right. So in addition to this, we are recording as well so that we can share this love with more people, as a matter of fact. While we're here, why don't we even test the technology out for a second? There is a little chat bar on the side that you guys have the ability to say, hey, Mike, what's going on? And if someone wants to give that a little test run to warm things up. We are also doing this on Facebook Live. We're on Facebook Live right now. Something weird happened at the beginning, but we should be recording right now with Facebook Live, so I'm sort of excited about that right now. There you go, Ryan. What is going on, my brother? So if you also want to send me a message as well, you can see, because I want to make sure that we know how to use the technology. Mel, thanks so much. Hello, indeed there. So check out the chat. That way, if you have a question or something, or you want to contribute to the conversation, you can say something as it comes in. I do want to confirm, first of all, and for those of you on Facebook Live, you won't be able to see the screen because, well, Facebook Live is the subservient to the webinar, while Zoom is the dominant. Someone more energetic than you are. Oh, no, no, no. We will do something together if you got some energy, because life is meant to be juiced, right? All right. So here we are. This is a weekly webinar. The whole idea is to be able to offer to the Leadership Concierge Program, which is something very indigenous. There's a fun word for you for Engaged Leadership. We have a Leadership Concierge Program to be able to help you as a company, as a business, as an individual, as someone aspiring to grow, as someone aspiring to be a leader, as someone aspiring to actually be a stronger manager or a stronger leader. That's the whole purpose of this. And look at this. We've got a bunch of people in the room right now. This is the biggest turnout yet. Welcome, everybody. Okay. So let us begin. Just want to confirm, can someone give me an amen? Can you see my screen right now? It should have the Engaged Leadership logo on there. First time I'm actually sharing screen. Amen. There you go. Did you know, as a matter of fact, the word amen actually translates to I'm here, I believe, I'm present. So, you know, talk about leadership. If you're not getting your people to say amen, they don't have to say the word amen. But if they say, yeah, I'm here, they're bobbing their head or they're contributing, they're saying amen, the same thing that someone would say at a church. They go, amen, that means they're there, they believe, right? And as a good leader, all being a leader is getting people to follow, getting people to buy in, being able to influence people. So anyhow, purpose of this particular Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time webinar is for free executive coaching. Every single week we'll do 10 minutes up front of just some sort of content, some theme. So if you have direct reports, or you yourself, or you have someone who's a middle manager or a senior manager who's just, you know, needing a little more love, feel free to send them to this. Have this as a regular thing on their calendar, because we're going to do this every single Wednesday, and I'd love to be able to have some regulars on the show. This week it's leadership styles, but when I say leadership styles, I mean passive, aggressive, assertive. That's what we're going to talk about. Give you a vocabulary to use for yourself, for your team, or anything like that. It's perspective. It's all about perspective and point of view, right? That's what this is all about. And just so you know, the next one, next Wednesday, I'll also be doing that one, and the topic's going to be how to determine if your direct reports are lazy. I'm going to say that one again because it feels fun to say. The one next week is going to be how to determine if your direct reports are lazy. Again, we also have this on Facebook Live, so if you see me looking at different screens over here, we're trying out all the new mediums. All right, if you're ready to go, let me hear you say an amen, so I know you're present, aware, ready to go. And today's particular topic is the leadership fulcrum. Okay, that's today's particular topic, which is talking to Amex. I like Amex even better. Hand over your Amex. I'll take your amens and your Amex. So that's where we're here. And guys, if you have questions, you can either put it in the chat, or there is a Q&A button. If a question pops up over here, some weird sound just started coming from the hallway, and we love to hear sounds of like buzzsaws happening right outside your door. So if you do have a question, you can either, if it's apropos to what we're talking about, throw it in the chat. Otherwise, hit the Q&A button. All right, so the leadership fulcrum. So you've heard of passive aggressive. We haven't heard passive assertive or assertive aggression or aggression assertive. Today's about the three different kinds of personality traits that you'll often find in leadership. Now, there's different books written about there's leadership A and leadership B. No, we're just getting basic. We're getting raw. right here and right now. And again, we're only going to take 5 or 6 minutes to talk about it. But I'm going to tell you a story on where this came from. When I was in my early 20s, there was somebody that I was doing business with who, I mean, it was like I couldn't get anything done. And I was really trying to be self-aware, saying, maybe it's me. I don't know. But after a few years of, maybe like 2 years of doing this project, I was starting to do research like, is this me? Is it the other person? I hadn't had many mentors up to that period in time, right? I got my cup of tea over here, by the way. And at 11:30 every day, you guys on Wednesdays, you should bring your cups of tea too. So anyhow, I'm doing this and I'm working with the guy, and I ended up having another client who was like, I'll trade with you. I'll give you executive coaching. It was my first time ever even knowing what executive coaching was. And between him and some books I read, he goes, all right, because I didn't know if I wanted to leave this other project, which was the biggest project I was doing. You know, and he writes a scale and he draws a scale out for me like this here. And he goes, on one side of the scale, you've got passive, on the seesaw, shall I say, you have passive, right? On the other side, you have aggression. And the question is, where do you yourself, me, right? Or where does the individual you're working with fall on the scale? Because if somebody is a passive leader, right? If they're a passive leader, they're going to have these issues, right? They're going to have these innate issues that are having that cost all companies time, money, attrition, turnaround, right? So if you're passive, you're letting everyone walk all over you. And somebody put in the chat here, what happens if you let your staff walk all over you? What happens if you let your staff just go willy-nilly to whatever it is? What kind of consequences happen? I'm going to start listing some, but list some that you've experienced yourself. Throw something down in the chat there, because I want this to be engagement, hence engaged leadership, right? So I want you to put some down. So if you let someone just walk all over you and do whatever they want, what happens to that? What's the consequence in the business, right? Disrespect from the direct reports, because there's no real respect. There's nothing to respect. Lack of accountability. Ryan, I love you. Don't know who you are, but let's hug. Okay, right? And so I listed a few out here. Normally I don't list what I'm about to say on the slide, but I want to be able to show the chart, right? The vision that you have, totally overrun by the vision everyone else has. I'm not, with a lot of my people today. I'm in a separate space. And so I'd like to think that I've done enough planning for them that they're executing my vision. But if I give no vision, they're going to do whatever they have. Unfocused efforts by direct reports. Love it, right? There's a lack of boundaries. The people come and go as they please, right? Now, maybe you're in an environment that's work result oriented, fine, but people start taking advantage of it. So that's a passive leader, right? Now let's go to the aggressive leader on the other side of the seesaw. So what have you experienced if you've ever had an aggressive leader, or if you've had an aggressive, the light from the back is driving me crazy. What if you've had an aggressive leader? What's the consequence of having someone who's purely aggressive, taking it for themselves, right? They disrespect others, right? Their vision alone is not strong enough to keep people, especially in today's day and age. We hear the word millennials a lot, right? We're like, I am so not fulfilled over here. I'm gonna bump out. Hey, all right, I love Ryan, but I want someone else to give some answers too here. Mel, Sherry, Sue, Tina, William, the other people in the room, anyone, throw something down. No, Ryan, I want you to show off, man. I want you to steamroll, but I want other people to start steamrolling you too, right? We should be like a slam session over here. Creates an environment where your efforts are never good enough, right? So you stop trying, and that's what happened to me. I had a very aggressive leader. And the manager or the executive coach had said to me, you have to choose how far are you willing to let that scale tilt. Because at a certain point, you got to go, right? So that's the aggressive leader, right? And then you have that assertive leadership. That's what I prefer. Wow, the light is really getting crazy. The sun just decided to get out. I'm going to move a little bit here so I'm not so whitewashed out. The background isn't as well, right? If you have an assertive leader, those are the ones who are respected the most, right? Those are the ones who you're like, yo, that person's got balls and they mean business, but they love me, right? No, and again, Ryan, don't be sorry. So has anyone here ever had an assertive leader where you respect them, you like them, but man, they might have some really strong values that I have to hold myself to a higher standard? If you've had that, put the number 1 in the checkbox in the chat. Have you ever had a leader who's assertive? There you go, 1, right? Somebody who you like working for, but man, you can't drop the ball. But you want to execute the vision, right? They've created boundaries, whether it's time boundaries or workflow boundaries or dress code boundaries, right? It holds us to a higher standard. Is that it? Just Mel. If you've never had an assertive leader, put the number 2 inside the text box, which I don't know if you guys can see the text box. Actually, I don't believe you can. I'm actually not 100% sure. So keep throwing stuff down anyways. We can't, oh, you can't see the text box. Good to know. Third time we're doing this webinar. Going to have to figure out how to do that in the future. Now that we've got a lot of people in here, we can do that. Yeah, sideways face, Ryan. So you might not be able to see everyone's text, but I'm going to read everything that people say. And the next time I do one of these, I'm going to make sure that you can see it. All right. So that's passive, assertive, aggressive, right? Oops, that's it. So you know what I don't have? I don't have a slide with all four. But obviously the ideal is to be passive aggressive. I'm sorry, not passive aggressive. It's to be assertive, right? And if you're assertive, then you're going to have, you know, you're giving enough flexibility that people can make their choice. And you're giving enough authority that people are bound to the governed laws that you create, right? So I'm going to do a poll real quick, as a matter of fact. And I want you to tell, argy matey technology. I'm going to do a poll real quick. I'm going to throw something on the screen, and I want you guys to do it, all right? And I'm going to launch a poll. If I were to ask members on your team, or people that you work with, even if you're not a leader, which are you dominant? Are you dominantly a passive? If I were to poll your people, what would they say? Would they say you're passive? Would they say you're assertive? Or would they say you're aggressive? So this is a self-awareness. So if I were to ask your team members, be honest with yourself. If I were to ask your team members, what kind of leader are you? Even if you don't have direct reports. Look, only like a third of the people have voted so far. I want you to put it in. Even if you're a receptionist or an admin or anything, what would they say you are? Are you passive? Do you just sort of just let things happen and don't want to make waves? Are you aggressive? Are you like, hey, my way or the highway, everybody? Or are you assertive? Come on, more people. I know there's more people in the room than have already voted. I've got 2 on passive, 2 on assertive, but I've got like 3 times the amount of people in the room right now. So I want at least 2 or 3 more people to vote before we continue this conversation right now. All right, let's get something from somebody over here. All right, so let's keep going over here. Here's the question. Okay, so I've got 3 passives in the room, which honestly, for a webinar like this, it's not too shocking. And I've got 3 passives, 2 assertives who have voted, and 0 aggression. You know, that's good. At least we're not going to be throwing stuff against the wall, but we're going to get steamrolled over, right? So the questions you want to ask yourself. Thank you, everyone, for doing it. Here we go. I'm going to end the poll, and I think it lets me share the results. Yeah, share results. Why not? So not everyone participated, but we got it. 3 to 2 and 0 in there too. So if your vision's not getting executed the way you want, you got to ask yourself, which am I passive or aggressive? Because there's not anything wrong. You're not going to be in the middle of that scale all the time, right? The idea is that you tilt over this way, you tilt over that way. But if you go too far over, you lose, you answered assertive with a tendency to be passive. Got it, Brian. Excellent. All right. But here's the bigger question. And you can put this in the chat box. And I don't think I can show this. Save chat, allow viewer chat. Nah, it's not letting me do it. But the people that you work with, the person that you direct report with the most, are they passive, aggressive, assertive? Feel free to put it down if you're comfortable, right? Because if you're conflicted with someone at work, one of the first questions to go, am I conflicted because they're passive and like I'm not getting anything out of them? Am I conflicted with interacting with the person because they're too assertive? And maybe they're just assertive with you, right? Hi, Facebook Live. I've been totally ignoring you. You are the bastard child, Facebook Live. Sorry. You're redheaded today. Or is there no conflict and there's open dialogue and open communication, right? So those are the questions. Those are the things to ask yourself. Is the person, or is my direct report, are they too passive or are they too aggressive? Or are they being the right amount of assertive? Because most of the time, especially if we have young or up and coming leaders, they're one or the other. They go, I'm my way or the highway, right? Or they go, oh, okay, everyone, let's get along. Right? So it's the first question you want to ask yourself. So I'm going to ask you this question. What's the one thing that you got out of today's workshop? What's the one thing, before we go to the Q&A, what's one thing you got out of today's workshop? And please be honest, is there a message? Is there something I said? Maybe it's something you already knew, but you were like, you know what, this was a good reminder. What's the one thing you got out of today's? One person writing new language. Awesome. You know, what's one thing you got out of today's? Maybe put down a word, a sentence, a thought, anything that you want to share. Because the way we make things stick is we repeat it, we rehearse it, we review it, right? The difference between leadership styles, right? And Sherry, there's a lot of ways to interact I'm sorry. There's a lot of ways you can say leadership styles, but this is just 3. This is the vocabulary we're using for today. Passive, assertive, aggressive, right? Anyone else, what you get from today? And what I'd like you to do, whether you put it in the text box or the questions, let's open up the floor to a few questions. So I want you to take the time to put your questions in here while some other people type, what did they get out of this particular seminar themselves? What's one thing you got from today with the passive, aggressive, assertive? Anything in here? Maybe there's a thought. Maybe, you know what, you had some self-realization. Someone saying, love knowing that I can be a beacon for your people to follow. Yeah, you know, sometimes you just got to be remember that. All leadership is one who obtains followers or one who influences. You can look at it from either standpoint. Understanding leadership styles and think about them when working with others, right? And so we don't have to do, look, we're big fans at Engaged Leadership, the Myers-Briggs test. But you know what? Sometimes we just got it. We need an answer immediately. We don't have the time to do a Myers-Briggs test. And a lot of times the people are not going to do Myers-Briggs tests anyways. But we can at least go, you know what, this person's just aggressive. So what am I supposed to do? You know, what, you know, at least I have a name. And by having a name for it, and that you need not to be passive, you know, I appreciate your honesty here. So ask some questions on any executive, you know what, so this ends the passive aggressive leadership session. This ends the passive aggressive leadership session. But I'm saying to you now, the second half of this particular workshop is for executive coaching. Any questions, anything that's coming up in your current leadership world, whether it's a question about your leadership style or a question about someone else's leadership style, I want to make sure every Wednesday at 11:30 p.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, there's a place that you can come and ask questions. And we're going to have different speakers each time. And they're always going to be quick beginnings and quick endings. So feel free to ask questions. So I've got one question here from a Regina asking, what if I work for someone who is utterly aggressive? Good question. What if you work for someone who is utterly aggressive? Yeah, it is a good question because I know that I had that in my early years. And I know that it still exists a lot, you know, and even clients, right? You might have a client. And as I answer this question, feel free to put some other questions down as well. Thank you, JJ, for putting down a question as well. I'll get to your question as well. So because every situation is unique within itself, it's hard to just give it from here. And if you want to give me some more facts, Regina, please feel free to. But my question, you know, the question is this person going to be open to dialogue? Is the person just not self-aware? You know, number one, is this someone you can go to and say, I don't feel hurt? Or I'd like to have more of a say. So that's the first thing is, can you open up dialogue? If not, then number one, by naming the baby, and this is someone who's not willing to communicate with you, by naming the baby, you can go, at least I've named the baby. I know the person's aggressive. I know the person's passive aggressive too, right? And they're not going to change. If they're not going to change after having a dialogue, you can at least name the baby. And you've got to say to yourself, this is just one thing. Again, this would be a great dialogue. And by the way, this is what Engaged Leadership is about. If you're looking for executive coaching, there's people who have even years of experience on top of me. You know, I come from a point of view, but we have many coaches who can answer this question for you on one-on-one. And of course, if you want to write me, Regina, and send me your email, I will gladly hop on a 15-minute call with you as well. You got to go, okay, what am I going to get out of this interaction? And you need to accept it for what it is, right? Or like what I did, I realized the amount of aggression was so much that I had to choose to leave. And that's what I had to do in that case. And it was a very well thought out thing. I said, this is an environment I am not going to thrive in. In particular, I've had the conversation brought me nowhere. I sought to understand, well, what is it that I could do to make things less aggressive? And it still didn't improve. It actually got worse, right? And I said, this is an environment I'm not willing to be in. Now, I don't want you to put yourself in any position like that, obviously, to have to leave. But you have to weigh the options and go, is this worth my health, my sanity, anything like that? JJ, before I get your questions here, because we are coming to time, we are actually at time, but JJ, I'll answer your, sorry. JJ's question is, how do you interview for these traits? Did anyone else Throw down a question. Throw down a question. Even if I can't answer it today, I'll at least answer it via email. Question about leadership, about the work environment. It doesn't have to be on today's particular topic, but these two questions are about the leadership topic, so feel free to throw in a question there. But the question is, how do you interview for these traits? Because we're at time, I'm going to go fairly quick on this because I do a lot of interviewing quite often. One of the most amazing tricks is pull yourself out of it and just go, or pull the interviewee out of it and go, if I were to ask your 3 references or 5 references, are you passive as a manager? Are you aggressive as a manager? Or are you assertive as a manager? What would they say? And give me some examples. And because you're asking them to not self-evaluate, they're going to give you the answers. And man, when they tell you the answers, believe them. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll answer the other questions via email. I appreciate you all coming in. Remember, every Wednesday, next week it is going to be me, and the topic next week is how to determine if your direct reports are lazy. Most of all, remember, this is what Engaged Leadership's here for. Write us at info@engagedleadership.com. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Right, info@engagedleadership.com. If you have any questions, or if you even want to find out more about how can you bring Engaged Leadership in to actually do customized training, either one-on-one or group facilitation on different topics like leadership foundations to how to handle a conflict in the workplace. And that's what we specialize in. That's our jam. So my name is Michael Ian-Cedar. I'm one of the coaches here at Engaged Leadership. I'm actually the head of the concierge program over here. Love having you guys. Next week is going to be, and then me again, and then and feel free to sign up. Ooh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in the text box here. If you want to sign up for next week's, you could do it right now. There's the link. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. I applaud you for wanting to expand your horizons. This was the biggest group we've ever had yet. People are starting to leave the room. So thank you very much. Facebook.